this topic today of seeing beyond the appearances, seeing beyond what it is we see. We see the nail, but beyond that nail is a ballerina. And so what we're talking about here is just recognizing that not only every person, but all of creation is a divine expression. And in particular, I'm not in particular, keeping in mind the people. And as Jason said in his lead into to the message today, is that we form perceptions and biases and fears based on our previous experiences, or as Don Miguel Ruiz would call it, the domestication. And I firmly believe that, as long as we're not conscious of it, we can be domesticated even beyond our childhood. When we start paying attention to what our true values are, what we really believe, what we really feel inside of us, way deep down, that love that we truly are, that is what we are, that then we start to understand how these things can keep us from seeing past the experience. In our Declaration of Principles, which is the statement of what we believe, we say that the Great Spirit. I learned a term over Thanksgiving that there are some cultures that call what we call God the Great Mystery. Whatever this is, that one that manifests itself, it manifests itself through all of creation, and that we're the individualization of spirit is us. That we are all, that all of creation is an individualized expression of spirit, of the divine, of God, of the great mystery, of the creator itself, whatever we want to call it. And when we realize this and we start to take this time to understand what that means and start to understand what oneness means, then we start to develop a deeper empathy, a greater respect, and then we feel that interconnectedness of everything and everyone around us. There's a term, it's a Sanskrit term, and it's central to Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism, and I feel to our teaching also, and it's called ahimsa, and it translates into nonviolence or harmlessness. And what it does is it calls all of us into a way of being that is rooted in compassion. It's rooted in reverence and deep respect for all forms of life. And the recognition that everything is the manifestation of the one life, of oneness. Now, many of you have heard, and throughout this teaching, I say it as frequently as I can to remind myself as well as everyone else, love is all there is. And those of you in Connecticut know the rest of that one, because the rest we made up. The rest is that perception that Jason was talking about, is all of the things that contain, restrain, restrict the love that we are. And when I teach the foundations class, when we're talking about the principles, the spiritual principles, if you've seen our teaching symbol, the circle with the 3 sections with the V through it, what that is representing is that there are these absolute spiritual principles: love, joy, peace, harmony, light. It is what we are. That is absolute. And when we come through the subconscious mind, whether it is the subconscious mind of all of humanity, all of creation, or our own subconscious mind, we come into the form, which is the bottom of that teaching symbol. We come into the manifestation. And what happens is when we are in this world that we're in today, and we experience what we may call hate, or we may call lack, we may call whatever it is that makes us uncomfortable, that is not freedom, is not peace, is not love, is not joy. What we're experiencing is we are not experiencing evil, if you will. What we are experiencing is the lack of love. We are experiencing the lack of abundance. We are experiencing the lack of peace or hope or joy. What we are experiencing is that lack. And when we shift our mind and start looking for the love, looking for the peace, looking for the joy, looking for the harmony, and being that ourselves, the situation shifts. And it was really hard to take all of this information of everything I wanted to say and bring it into a 20-minute talk today, I will tell you, because there's so much. And one of the concepts that we can read about in many different books, but in particular, there's a book called The Soul of the Octopus by Cy Montgomery. She spent a lot of time with studying octopus, and she realized that they are so much smarter than what most humans believe. What most of us grew up with. We kind of think they're just this blob that kind of squishes along in the ocean or swims along or shoots ink at you if it gets upset. But what we understand about those creatures now is they're really smart. They're really hard to contain. Like if you have them in a laboratory, you have to be really diligent as to how you contain them because they can pretty much figure out how to get out of anything. They have personalities. I haven't read the whole book. I've read pieces of it, and it's just really incredible. And my 6-year-old grandson loves octopuses, so he's been learning about them, and he fills me with all this incredible information about them. But what we understand is that when you look at nature, you look at we're finding out that trees communicate through underground networks. We can see that bees can communicate with each other through dance to give some incredibly precise information about where's the nectar, where's the pollen, here's where I was, come follow me. And whales do it through song. And one of the things that really blew my mind for a few moments was finding out the slime molds can figure out how to get through a maze. So we think of slime molds as just something that sits there and is real slimy. And if you've ever slipped on it, you know how slimy they can be. But there's an intelligence there that can solve mazes. You can go out and research that one if you want. It's pretty incredible. Ahimsa, oneness. We are all one. There's only one here right now, and it's expressing itself in this incredibly beautiful multiplicity of each and every one of us who are here today. There is only one. So, so getting back to this seeing beyond the appearance. As humans, we can have a tendency that if what we're seeing or what we're hearing, especially from another person, is being filtered through the perceptions that we have, the societal beliefs that we have, we can have a tendency to dismiss or discount it, especially if it's something from our own personal experience. And so there's two things that I wanted to talk to you about today regarding that. Jason gave an example of how Baba Nanak had this incredible vision and formed the Sikh community. And if you've ever been involved with the Sikhs, what you know is they are there to serve. They're there to serve humanity. Well, I want to talk to you about something that I came across in 2019, which really shifted me on looking through what the story is that I'm hearing, the story that my mind is creating on another person. And that was an interview with Derek Black and Matthew Stevenson. It was on the podcast On Being with Krista Tippett. It was in May of 2018. Derek Black was the heir apparent to the white nationalist movement. His father had created the website Stormfront that was the put out there the beliefs of the white nationalist movement. Derek's godfather was David Duke. If you don't know who David Duke is, he was the head of the Ku Klux Klan. I forget what it was like the Grand or Imperial Wizard or something like, but he was the head of KKK, and he was running for elected offices to implement this philosophy of white nationalism. Well, Derek decided to go to study some medieval history for a college degree and went to New College of Florida. And that was where he met Matthew Stevenson. Matthew was a student, also a student sorry, New College of Florida. And he would be in the dorm and he would hear this somebody playing the guitar and singing country and western music, and Matthew liked country and western music, so he found out who it was, and it turned out to be Derek. And at the time, he didn't know who Derek Black was, and they formed a friendship. And suddenly he saw how Derek was being treated on campus. He was being shunned from activities, and what had happened was it came out who Derek was, whose son he was, and it's a liberal arts college, so people were starting to shun him. Well, Matthew and another friend of his were hosting a Friday evening they're of the Jewish faith, and they were hosting a Friday evening Shabbat dinner. And so they invited Derek to come. And in inviting him, they also set this rule that none of us were here to change anybody. We're all here to understand. And over time, and I invite you to go and listen to the podcast or just Google it, or research it online. They became Derek eventually, or actually not within a couple of years, denounced the white nationalist movement, because it was when he started listening to these other people and how out of place it was with freedom, and started exploring his own inner self, and that love that we are started coming forward. It was out of balance with the values. And that Derek went on to also understand that Derek is now known as Adrian Black. Adrian Black, and is trans and has a website and a podcast, and it's an incredible story. So I invite you to look at that. Another one is my Thanksgiving experience, where I had to do some inner soul searching. There was my son and daughter-in-law, and have a couple that they're helping who are from Colombia. And rather than spiritual discernment, I was starting to use judgment. Why are they here? How come? Why? All these why questions. I hadn't met them yet. And then they came for dinner on Thanksgiving Day, and we had this incredible. Once I realized that I was shutting myself down to know these people because of prejudices that I didn't even realize I had. The collective consciousness was coming into me, and all these fears and everything came. And when I set that aside, when I made a conscious decision to set that aside and go into curiosity, go into knowing that I can see beyond what my story about these people wanted me to see, go beyond the appearance, see past that nail to the ballerina that was there. We had the most incredible discussion about spirituality in general. because this young couple follows an Aztec path. And they were just so excited and so enlightened to hear that something that's not indigenous based, as we were talking about spirituality, they realized spiritual principle is universal. It doesn't matter. It's universal. It's there. Love is love, and love is all there is. And it was this incredibly deep, rich conversation, getting to know them, getting to understand their situation, removing any of the fears or preconceived ideas that I had because of my own experiences or because of the collective consciousness and the way the society here in the United States is tending to go. And it was absolutely beautiful. I have another granddaughter who's adopted me. I'm her gra now. She has a grandma in Miami, but I'm also her. She calls me gra, and that's what my grandkids call me. And it was just incredible. And what it took was moving into curiosity, leaning into curiosity, consciously letting go of the fears and the preconceived ideas. There's an example in nature. After the movie Jaws and possibly before that, sharks got a really bad rap that they just want to come and eat humans. If you're out in the water and there's a shark, you're going to get eaten. I'm not a proponent of going into the beach when they have shark warnings out. Don't do that. However, what we know now, if you look beyond that, look beyond the predator, the monster, and go into curiosity and find out more about sharks, what you find is they're navigating in their own environment. Their favorite meal is a seal. And when we're in the water splashing around, we look like one. And they're curious and they come and check us out. Don't go in the water with sharks, but pay attention to the fact that we understand what motivates them to have the behavior that we think they have. And that's important. That's what Derek and Matthew Stevenson did. And the whole group that would meet on Fridays and talk. And they were curious from both sides to understand. The discussion that I had with this beautiful couple from Colombia opened me up to a whole nother way of looking at the world. And it opened them up to see also that a whole different way of looking at the world. And that there was way more in common than there was different than we were. So lean into curiosity. Understand that God is in everything. And what Brene Brown says in many of her books is that if we stay in awe and wonder, that 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 is essential to this human experience, and it opens up the human experience for us. It allows us to see that deeper expression. It allows us to move beyond the fear, move beyond preconceived ideas. And as I was preparing this, the song, it's a John Prine song sung by Bette Midler called Hello in There. And unfortunately, Bobby, I didn't think about this song until late last night, so I didn't ask you to so we could have that music. But it's a song about how we treat older people. And what it brought me to was this idea, this curiosity, awe, and wonder. And there was one day I had at the time he was 5 and 3-year-old grandchildren. And my grandson saw this woman sitting on the sidewalk in front of a store, and she looked very sad. And he looked at me and wanted permission to talk to her. We didn't exchange words, and I just bowed, nodded my head. And he went and asked her if she was okay. And she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "It's my birthday today, and I just want somebody to recognize my birthday." And so he asked me if we could sing happy birthday. So the three of us, the, my granddaughter, my grandson, and I sang her happy birthday, and the expression on her face was so beautiful, so uplifting that it just was to see my grandchildren so pleased that they had helped this woman. She wasn't out, she just wanted someone to recognize that it was her birthday. And we did. And she thanked us and we walked on and the kids felt good. I felt good. She felt good. And it's that curiosity. Carl noticed that she was sad and just wanted to understand why she was sad. And that's what made me think that the song is just say hello and say hello in there. So when we immerse ourselves in moments of awe, like feeling the awe that I felt and the joy that Carl felt when he was able to sing happy birthday to somebody and bring joy into their life. When we think of those times, when we experience those times, we can transcend. We can transcend our initial reactions and perceptions. It was like, on Thanksgiving Day, it was like I could have stayed in fear. I was staying next door at my son's Airbnb. I could have gone over there and been by myself. But instead I consciously decided that I wanted to learn more and not out of fear, but out of a true wanting to understand. And where can I help? And they until every time we got back together since dinner on Thursday, they thanked me for my wisdom because we had these incredible conversations. I thanked them for theirs. It was really beautiful. So when we have this willingness to explore and comprehend rather than categorize or condemn or put people in pigeonholes, like uh, Matthew Stevenson, when he found out who Derek Black was, he could have just said, "Whoa, I don't want to have anything to do with that," but instead wanted to find that that place of understanding, or as Rumi says, and I'm paraphrasing him, that there is that space beyond what's right and wrong. I'll meet you there. So when we start to view the world with this perceive the world as a place to be curious, to be in awe and wonder, we develop empathy, we live in inclusivity, we recognize the inherent oneness of all beings, and we understand the interconnectedness and the wholeness of our planet. We bring it forward in our mind that spirit is in all of creation, that there's no spot where God is not, as we like to say. And when I bring it into the reality of this of everyday life, it can be challenging sometimes not to categorize, but when I catch myself, each of us catches ourselves doing that, and we acknowledge the sacredness of this tapestry of life, and we search for understanding. We bring into our consciousness that saying that I've heard many, many times, hurt people hurt people. And try to understand the story. Think of the shark. That when I understand the shark's nature, when I understand what the shark is, then I understand the motivation behind what it is. If I understand someone's hurt, my own hurt or anyone else's, then I can move beyond that. I can move in. I can begin to transform my own perceptions. I can be open. I can be in awe. I can be curious. And this month that we're in, this month of December, is a time of change. You know, the days are getting shorter and then the days start getting longer after the solstice. We're coming into the solstice. So December can be symbolic of the life, of the death and rebirth of the sun. It's also a time for personal in inner reflection. Um, I'll hear, which was interesting because we were talking to people from an equatorial climate, so they're not used to, they were like shocked that the days were getting so short. They had not experienced that. Um, but keeping in mind that this is the time here, especially in the northern hemisphere, well, in the northern hemisphere, where we are, everything around us, the trees are losing their leaves and going into their hibernation. A lot of animals are going into hibernation. It's time for us to go in and reflect, and time for us for that inner reflection and cleansing. So I want to give you a quote from Martin Luther King. I've heard many times about the quote about darkness cannot change darkness, only light can do that. But the one I that really resonated with me today was, he said, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great of a burden to bear. So as we go into our week this week, let us let us keep that in mind, that hate or negativity, fear is a great burden to bear. And find one judgment or reaction or a perception, and become aware of it, and make this conscious decision to be curious, to find out what's behind the appearance, to see beyond what the nail and see the ballerina that's there, to look into um, find the love in whatever it is we're looking at. And since I love my grandchildren so much, I will quote my 3-year-old grandson, Ocean, because whenever I would say, let's try this, what he would say, let's see what happens. So let's see what happens when you take one judgment, one reaction, one perception, and move and dive into curiosity, become aware of it, and move into curiosity, and maybe you too can have an incredible conversation with somebody. Just maybe it's a singing happy birthday to somebody, maybe whatever it may be. Let's try it and let's just see what happens. Thank you so much. I love each and every one of you.